It is the death lineup. Draft day 2023 was also a giant trade for the Warriors today. I guess we just update people on the latest of the latest. So obviously, Victor Wembanyama went number 1. By the way, did you see the San Antonio rodeo guy who was at the draft party get his name wrong?
Yeah, I did. Welcome to San Antonio.
Yeah, that was not good. Not a great start. Spurs franchise there. But the Warriors, they just made their pick, which is why we went live just a tad bit late here. They went with Cam Whitmore was just sitting right there, ready for everybody. He was the guy. He got Aaron Rodgers in this draft, sitting there, number 19. Some guys that we had talked about earlier this year about who could possibly be available for them, and they went with the local kid who you said that you actually saw play live, and he was not the person you went to go see play live for.
Was not the person I went to go see, was the person I was most intrigued with leaving the building, though.
Well, that's
me, Carmichael, and Adrian went to go see Maxwell Lewis, and then Brandon. Do you know how to pronounce his last name? I didn't hear Silver say it. I mean, like I wasn't totally listening to the audio. I was just waiting to see who it was.
I think it's Podzemski.
Podzemski. Yeah, man. I'm excited. This is who KOC had us mocked to in like his last mock draft. Little polarizing in terms of where scouts had him. I know Sam Vecini has him like 43rd. I actually have it right here. I could pull it up. 42nd. And then KOC at 23. I little bit of what I told you, man. I went to the game, 20-20 game at what, a 6'4" guard, 20 points, 20 rebounds. And you know what that screams to me as a Warriors fan?
What?
Dante DiVincenzo.
Oh,
he's just the DiVincenzo replacement. He's
a bigger DiVincenzo, though, right? He's a little bit bigger than DiVincenzo.
6'4". Isn't DiVincenzo like 6'4"? Or is he 6'3"? Or is he 6'2"?
Closer to 6'3" to me.
It's very similar.
They're very similar size then. But okay, so someone asked me about DiVincenzo today, and I said, well, the Warriors don't have a mid-level, so he's going to opt out. They just won't be able to re-sign him. He's going to get more money than they can afford in the slot. And I said, if DiVincenzo was 2 or 3 inches taller, he legitimately could be an all-star, because the one thing he couldn't do is finish over big guys.
And shot create, like a primary shot creator.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, sure. Like the handle and all that and creating something. But he could get to the bucket. He could hit an open 3. He just could not finish. Like, he was aggressive on defense. He's going to get pushed around. But the one thing was the size thing. And so when I looked at the size of let's just call him BP. When I saw BP's size, I was like, okay, he's a little bit taller, but how does he fill out? What does he look like as an athlete?
I think, I think some of the minuses you have with DiVincenzo might still appear with BP or Pods or whatever people are calling him. He might get pushed around kind of like DiVincenzo just because of his size. But I think what's intriguing about this kid is that he was the primary shot creator in Santa Clara. He played with J-Dub. J-Dub gets drafted. He stays another year. He's 20 years old. He was the primary shot creator. So some of my main needs for the Warriors, I think I've said them on this podcast, but it was, I think, if I could just rattle them off the top of my head, it was like a shot creator for the second unit, because I thought they were moving off Jordan Poole, and Jordan Poole is the shot creator for the second unit. He is someone who provides pressure at the rim, and he's Mr. Available, 82 games. Like, if you replace Jordan Poole, you better be replacing him with something, someone that can do these things, or start picking up people that can do these things. And Brandon Podzemski, I think he fills the need of going to be available. You'd hope. He's a young player. We don't really know any injury history with him. And then some of the shot creation. It's hard to say that Kerr is going to allow a rookie to be a shot creator in his second unit. But I think he'll get some opportunities. And, again, I've said it before many times, like, you can't teach someone the wiggle or what it takes to be a shot creator. You kind of either have it or you don't. And this kid has it. And on top of being an elite shooter already, I'm high on it. The one thing that, his minus is defense. DiVincenzo brought a lot of defense. I'm in the camp of saying maybe we don't need that many more point of attack defenders with Moody, Kuminga, GP in the second unit alone. So I think he might be able to get by without it, especially on this team. I mean, it just seems like a Warriors pick. I'm not mad at it.
Okay, so here's my worry. My worry is that I read KOC's write up of him. He is good off the ball, according to KOC. He's very crafty. He can read the lanes. He's picking off passes, but on the ball might be a little bit harder for him. And that's my worry, is because if he's getting burned defensively and he all of a sudden becomes the target, then I worry a little bit about Kerr going like, I don't know if we can play this guy. Offensively, it sounds like he's kind of like a dream player for Kerr and for the way that the Warriors play offense. But defensively, will he be able to stay on the court? That's kind of the question.
And that's just really not a worry, until the playoffs. And obviously you want to have a sense of it before going into the playoffs, but this isn't a good comparison.
It's not a worry for you though, because, or is it a worry for you because no one made you more mad watching Warriors games than Jordan Poole being lackadaisical on defense?
Yeah. I mean, there's a difference between being a bad defender and not trying and being lackadaisical. Jordan Poole just happened to be all three of them. Like, you could be a bad defender, and at least if you give effort, you'll get by. But I mean, the thing that's interesting for me on my defense wins championships take is that you look at these playoffs and you look at a guy like Duncan Robinson, who was like a key player for Miami, terrible defender, but he was able to stay alive in the playoffs. They had a lot of pieces around him that can substitute defensively. They were able to hide him. Look on the other side of Denver.
Yeah, but they were playing zone a lot as well.
And the Warriors could play zone too. But I just think that, I think of like last year's Warriors, the only who you would say a minus defender that touched the court in the finals was Jordan Poole. So I've kind of been in the camp of like, as many two-way guys as possible, or as many guys who aren't going to get targeted on defense as possible. But these playoffs kind of changed my opinion a little bit. Maybe size is more important than not necessarily being the best on defense, or you can hide a guy a little more. But I think there's a difference between Jordan Poole, who I love Jordan Poole. Like, I'm sad that he's gone. Genuinely view him as maybe one of the worst defenders I've ever watched in my life. Like, it was just ridiculous on how he was like afraid of contact and then also didn't care and would throw fits. And it was just like the most ridiculous thing I've ever watched. I can't use him as the standard for every bad defender. He's like the worst. I can't imagine this guy's going to be worse than Jordan Poole. If he is, we lost. So get rid of the pick.
My buddy Richard, he's a Spurs fan. He was in San Antonio at the draft party. So awesome. He's fired up. He's all fired up for his squad. But he said Brandon versus Victor Summer League 23. I don't know if I can't imagine Victor's going to play in the California Classic that we're going to be going to in about a week and a half.
Yeah, probably not.
I kind of want him just to be there. I want to see what he looks like. That would be great. He doesn't have to play. Just show up and stand.
He'll be there. I
want to see him. But he said Brandon versus Victor Summer League 23. That's hilarious. Who do the Warriors play in Summer League, by the way?
I don't know if that schedule's out yet, but for the Classic, it's the Hornets, right?
Yeah,
we get the Hornets first game.
Okay,
I think we get the Hornets.
Originally, it was going to be the Spurs versus the Hornets, but
we were supposed to get the Kings.
Right. Okay.
Are the Kings about to draft Chris Murray, one of Bry's Fitz? Is that what's about to happen?
The Murray brothers and the Thompson twins. That'll be the story of the draft right there. After women, Yama.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about this pick, and I think YouTube might get mad at us for you streaming the NBA draft on YouTube.
I'll turn it off.
Bry has the draft on in the background, so he can kind of check in when I
you have to tell me who gets picked then, because I'm not watching.
I mean, I can look it up. I have my Twitter going.
I saw Noah Clowney just got picked. Was that Brooklyn who picked him? Because that makes no sense if Brooklyn just picked him.
So Brooklyn got Clowney at 21. Yes.
It's like he's like Claxton, right? Isn't that he's supposed to be like a rim protector in the paint? Like, why do you need another one of those guys? That doesn't make sense.
So I actually there's a guy in my other Discord, and he's a St. Mary's grad, and he's a USF season ticket holder. And he says Drew Timme was the best player
Drew Timme
was the best player in the WCC last year, but BP was the best NBA talent in his eyes. And he says he's going to root for him. He's kind of a mix Now KOC said Dante and D'Angelo Russell. He says, so this person who I'm talking to says Dante and Jordan.
Michael Jordan?
No, Jordan Poole.
And Jordan Poole. Yeah, and I mean, I think it really is just like on ball capability, Dante DiVincenzo minus the defense. Like that would be my comp. Like you obviously I can't, it's lazy to not say like an actual player. It's just like a version of a player. But yeah, on ball capable Dante DiVincenzo minus the defense would be my pick. Probably more capable as an interior finisher because Dante was weak. Do you remember how many times we watched him leak out and get the ball in fast break and just him against one defender and he could never do it? It's like, I'm just like not
he would
athletic
drive
enough.
into the hole and he would do this swoop pass back
right
out to the
behind him.
perimeter.
It's stupid.
Yeah, but that's what I mean though, is if it's just he just knew he couldn't finish, and if he was a few inches taller, he probably would be able to finish those shots, and he'd be great.
Yeah.
All right, we'll come back to this because we do need to talk about this trade that happened today. No more pool party. Now, I think what's going to happen eventually, because Chris Paul is a very good basketball player, we're going to talk ourselves into Chris Paul being us winning the trade, as long as Chris Paul doesn't like blow his knee out in preseason or something.
But that's the thing, right? That's the
So that's what I'm saying is, that's an if, but I think because of the basketball intelligence that he has, I think we're gonna by midseason we're gonna be talking as if this was a good trade for the Warriors. We don't have to talk about that right now though, because this is our guy. This is somebody that we've been rooting for since this podcast started. We're big Jordan Poole fans. I was just telling Felix, my stepson, that because you had bought him the Jordan Poole jersey or shirt, and I was like, Felix, you're gonna be so sad. And he's like, I know, Poole for CP, and I was like, yeah, all my Jordan Poole rookie cards, like we were so bought in to his development, even through the struggles in the playoffs last year, where he needed to kind of man up against the Grizzlies, but then he had a pretty decent finals, a couple games against the Celtics. But this year was a lot different, and it started with the punch, and it started with him getting that big contract and Draymond not getting the big contract. And then there was all of a sudden, there was a lot of pressure on him, more pressure than even the year before when they were in the finals, just because of the money and because of the bullseye on him with all the media about this punch, which is so unfair, by the way. It is absolutely unfair that he is the target of violence, and all of a sudden the media was really on him more than anybody else. And I'm not blaming the media. It's just the way that the story is going to work. Like, we don't know everything. So, what did Jordan do to get punched? And now we know Draymond's going to be, first team all defense. But now what is Jordan? Is he going to be able to, be the guy who maybe the Warriors picked Jordan over Draymond? Like, that was kind of the story. And unfortunately for him, like, he just did not have that superb season that we were hoping. By the way,
playoffs.
Portland is picking Chris Murray.
Oh wow! So did Portland trade with Brooklyn?
So
Brooklyn had 2 picks in a row.
So it went Brooklyn went Clowney, and then they went Whitehead.
Oh, nice! I like the Dariq Whitehead pick. It's an upside swing. They had 2 picks. Why not?
So Chris Murray goes to Portland. So we're not going to see the brothers on the same team.
I wonder. It's confusing to me, right? Chris Murray, very upside. Not upside. Sorry. Win now pick. And then obviously now you have Scoot. Like, are they going to trade Scoot? Or not to say Chris Murray picking Chris Murray that late tells me that they're leaning towards a win now direction. But Portland's all over the place. They're impossible to guess.
Yes, they are very much so. I mean, maybe what if they just stay put and they're like, we have these 2 young guards and we have the vet guard, and we're just going to run out tons of athleticism, and we're just going to be like the athletic team, and Dame's just going to shoot threes.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if, I think that's 23. I think Sack had picked 24, and Chris Murray's mock to them in almost every single mock. I'm wondering if Portland was like,
Maybe they're
no,
trying to
come get
get.
him.
Maybe they're
Come
trying to
get
get something else for a trade.
Yeah, come get him. We'll see.
All right, so back to Poole.
Back to Poole.
So all those things happen in the season, and then he doesn't like. I know you said playoffs, and really he did not have a good playoffs.
Look at his regular season numbers; they're
But
fine.
but those are numbers
I know.
Versus a lot of things that he did that were not beneficial to winning basketball. Because if Jordan Poole has a year that is better than what he did, the Warriors probably win 2 or 3 more games. But there were moments there where he was at the end and not hitting shots when they needed. So I don't think his year was a complete loss, but it was definitely a little bit of a disappointment because of the expectation, because that bullseye, because of the Warriors did when it came to re-signing him for that big money. So I guess my question to you is, do you think that Jordan Poole leaving this crazy media zone for him last year and leaving to Washington, and the expectations in Washington are absolute zero right now because they're more than likely going to get rid of Kuzma. They're going to go super young. They're going to have, they're going to probably be the worst team in the league. Can he flourish in that environment? Can he go and just get his and be the guy? He doesn't necessarily seem like that team leader mentality, but maybe he does have a little bit of that on a young team. I don't know. What are your thoughts about him leaving?
I think he's going to be awesome in Washington. I mean, Jordan Poole's a kid who, you look at each season, there's just progression every single season. First season as a rookie, probably one of the worst rookie seasons I've ever seen from a player. 8.8 points per game.
He was bad.
On 27% from three, 33% from the field. Like awful, one of the all-time worst rookie seasons I've ever watched. Next season, upward progression, 12 points per game, 35% from three, 43% from the field. Next year, 18.5 points per game, 44% from the field, and then 36% from three. And then this year, up in points per game, 18.5 to 20.4, obviously more minutes, or no, same minutes played in terms of averages, but definitely a couple more games. And then, what was it, 43%, so down in field goal percentage and down in three-point percentage. It was a down year for efficiency for JP, but, like the obvious glaring things for me throughout the season was defensive effort, and kind of just his decision-making in the clutch just kind of felt always the wrong thing. I could really remember that Atlanta game that went to like 3 overtimes of him deciding to take the last shot when Clay was on a heater. And it's like, dude, he missed the shot. I think DiVincenzo gets the rebound, or Looney gets the rebound and kicks it back out to DiVincenzo, who hits a 3 to send us to OT. But it was just silly decision-making in the clutch where he thought he had to be the guy when really he didn't. I could also remember a turnover to like lose them the game. I think it was like against Portland or something. But I think the way that like Simmons and KOC had his season portrayed as is like he's like the worst player in the league. And I just don't think that regular season defined that. He was just, those two things is stuck out like a sore thumb to me. But other than that, like they needed him. You couldn't depend on Steph for more than 65 games for like the past 3 years now. I wouldn't depend on it next year. You needed a guy who can give you all 82, and you needed a guy, he played through injuries, and then you needed a guy who, they don't get to where they were without him.
Mm-hmm.
Like as much as I dog on him defensively, defensive effort, like they don't get to where they were without him. And it sucks that the NBA is like a what can you do for me now league or a recency bias league, because I think that trade to me shows that his contract or how he was valued was what he did in the playoffs, was getting DMPs, losing them games in the playoffs for how bad he was. Like he didn't lose them an entire game, but he really did not help one bit. And that's tough because you had to give up more to get Chris Paul. Like I think that's why we're saying we lost the trade, because we as a fan base, or maybe not all, this fan base is just overall polarizing on every single player except for Stephen Curry, right? Like half of us like Draymond, half of us don't, half of us like Clay, half of us don't.
I think Draymond and Clay are way more favorable. Maybe now as they're getting older, people are kind of wondering if they still have it, but I think most of the fans know that, those guys are locks, and, no,
I would
I haven't seen very many, trade Clay rumors out there.
Yeah, and I mean, what I should take out of this is that Warriors Twitter is not the Warriors fan base. They're not the same things. It's just a very small minority of the fan base. But yeah, just the Jordan Poole thing. Like, I think that I value him as a higher contract player. Like, that regular season to me was, given the position he was in, he had to be the lead guy on a team with championship aspirations. And I feel like he did an okay job considering that. So when you trade him and a 2030 protected pick top 20, which I guess looks good for us, but that's just going to keep going to the next year, going to the next year, going to the next year. Then that pick becomes hard to trade the years after. But, a couple seconds and Ryan Rollins, who was a second round pick, good riddance to Rollins. But, Poole and that first for CP, especially given the fact that the Washington Wizards were giving away players, what it felt like. It just feels, I think you couple all that together is what it feels like how we lost this trade, especially how CP's performed these past couple of years in the playoffs, which is why Jordan Poole was valued so low because of how his performance was in the playoffs. CP hasn't been healthy for the playoffs. I don't know, since before Houston, I guess.
I think this trade is way more about buyer's remorse on the contract than it is about Jordan as a player versus CP as a player. I remember Jalen Rose used to say, players don't get traded, contracts get traded. And in this sense, I really believe that, because they signed Jordan to that deal knowing that, it's going to be, he and Tyler Hero were going to get very similar money. And the way that the cap today and the way that the CBA works is that those guys, because, they were coming up on that deal, you were either going to sign them or you were going to risk losing them. And that, Jordan would have been able to sign with anybody, after this year. And so the Warriors bet on him. And I think, yeah, it would have been restricted, but the Warriors bet on him with the idea that he was going to have a good season and he was going to be worth maybe even more than what they paid him. But the second all of that stuff happened, and then, really also the other part of this that I think happened is, I think, he and Draymond, the trust was broken there. So that's one vet, not Jordan's fault that this one vet does not trust him, but that's the trust is broken there for Draymond. Steph and Clay were seemingly frustrated with him on the court a few different times. You remember Steph throwing his mouthpiece, and then Jordan comes back to help them win that game. And what does Jordan do? He goes into the tunnel and he pretends like he throws the mouthpiece at Steph as if to kind of joke, which some people may take that as a joke. Steph was probably still heated that he got kicked out of the game. Like, nobody wants to be on the court more than Steph. And maybe Steph was like, not the right time, dude. Like, it's not the right time to make that joke. But it's just stuff like that. Like, personality-wise, JP didn't seem like a fit. He seemed a little bit like a lone wolf. Now, I don't know. I would like to know what his relationships were with some of the younger guys. But it definitely looked like when it came to the vets, he was not he was not with those guys. And if Steph was okay with this trade to bring in CP, then that also had to mean that he was okay with losing Jordan.
100%.
And look, it's not Steph's job to look into the future, right? Steph's job is not about, how good are we going to be in 2027? His job is to make sure that they're good now. So Steph as a GM is not looking into the future. He's just looking at this year. This upcoming season, the 2023-24 season, he believes that Chris Paul makes them better than Jordan Poole would. And that's what he's going to bet on is him and Dre and Clay. So I think once you don't have that trust there, then it becomes about, okay, then what can we get from this contract? Because if we don't have this contract and CP's expiring next year and Clay's expiring next year, then you're not all of a sudden paying $400 or $400 million for a roster that's like 160 million or whatever it is because of all those penalties. So I think it's really more about the contract even than it is about the fit. but the players will probably say it's more about, they want to play with CP, which is fine. But I think ultimately the contract piece of that probably weighs a little bit more than the player fit part of it.
Yeah. No, the contract is definitely a big reason why they had to give up more. I understand that. I think with Jordan is that his personality is just like he's just overconfident. And there's a story about when everyone chose their lockers when they went to Chase Center, he plopped himself right next to Draymond, Michigan State versus Michigan, and he just like loved talking trash. A guy who just, he's just always been overconfident by his play style, all the flashiness and all the like. It's just always been, charisma and confidence with Jordan Poole, and I feel like that's benefited him all throughout until he got punched, and I feel like he lost that confidence. And I'm hoping when he goes to Washington, he can regain that, and I think he will. Get away from a person who punched you in the face. Got to be a good thing. And then, I'm a big fan. I'm going to be rooting for him. I'm sure we all will be.
By the way, it looks like the Mavericks and the Kings made a trade, so that 24 went to Dallas, and Olivier Maxence Prosper was the pick for Dallas. So Sacramento drafted and they traded to Dallas. So they traded Rashawn Holmes and the 24 to Dallas, though. I don't know what Dallas gave up there.
That's awesome that the Kings were able to get off Rashawn's contract. That was hurting them. It's a bad contract, so they'll have more to spend. Maybe a Kuzma edition for Sacramento.
Yeah, they have $30 million in cap space now.
And yeah. Good for Sac, man. They can give Kuz the contract.
It looks like the TPE is what they traded. Dallas traded to get the pick.
Yeah, I don't know much about Olivier Maxence Prosper, but if you're trading that, if you're taking on a bad contract to get him, you got to be high on him.
Boston drafted Marcus Sasser at 25,
ooh.
And they're trading the pick to Detroit for number 31.
What the heck, man?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have much context. This is just a Shams quick tweet. We'll figure out what the context is of that trade.
Let me know when my guy Maxwell Lewis gets taken.
All right, I will. All right, let's go back to the actual draft. I wanted to get your thoughts on how it went. So, I think the big question, and I know you tweeted that you think the Hornets are gonna not feel good about this in the future, but Brandon Miller goes number 2, and they passed over Scoot Henderson, and the Blazers went Scoot Henderson. So why do you think the Hornets did that, A? And B, why do you think that they should have drafted Scoot?
I couldn't tell you. I guess for me, Brandon Miller is going to be a multi-time all-star. I'd probably bet on that. His floor, just what he could do with the basketball, and he projects as a two-way wing who can be a sniper from 3, do a little shot creation. The guy's gonna be Paul George, Jaylen Brown, maybe minus the athleticism, but he's gonna be good. You cannot doubt that he's not gonna be good. He's a solid fit wherever he goes. I just think I'm not trying to discredit Brandon Miller because I think he's a great player, but at the same time, I think Scoot has that all first team all NBA potential, that MVP potential. I just keep thinking back to watching that his team play Wembanyama's team, and just how in control Scoot looked, how mature he looked with the ball in his hands, making all the right decisions in a high pressure game like that, where you're playing the guy who's supposed to go number 1 to your number 2. And I thought he was, I thought he was the best player. Obviously, Wembanyama looks like the most promising and doing all the stuff he can. He wowed us, but Scoot was I think Scoot impressed me the most that day. And I know there's more to the season and stuff like that, but I think there's a dog in Scoot that you either have it or you don't, kind of like the wiggle thing. And, I would bet on his 3-point shot coming to fruition. You look at the way he shoots, you look at, him being like a gym rat, playing with Steph a lot in the offseason. I'm a big fan of his. And another thing that I thought was funny is that to add on to the dog of Scoot Henderson is that Rising Stars game where now they have it split up into 4 teams and then people draft to get the Rising Stars. That game, we all turned it on to watch Scoot. I didn't care about the rookies like Paolo, Jabari, or whatever the heck. Like I turned it on to watch Scoot, and I think Scoot knew that. Like not that I watched him, but that everyone had their eyes on him for this game. And the first thing he does is he gets the ball, goes right at the rim, and tries to do a reverse dunk on Jabari Smith Jr. And Jabari Smith Jr. fouls him. I think he clean blocked him, but it doesn't matter. It's a Rising Stars game. But just the fact that that's the first thing you do when you know everyone's watching you. I think he just spells out star. And I think he has the higher ceiling, and he's going to attain a higher ceiling than Brandon Miller will. And I think Charlotte's just being scared and not going for him.
Somebody mentioned in our Jordan Poole conversation that yesterday's prices aren't today's prices. $30 million for JP is going to look awful moving forward. There is a concern with the new CBA whether that 30 million is.
It's not something Washington's got to worry about for the time being, though. I think again, it's just recency bias, and it's, what can you do for me now, league? Again, the majority of people look at Jordan Poole who aren't Warriors fans, and they think he's awful, right? That's what you saw last. You saw the playoffs last. He looked awful in the playoffs, but I urge you to go look at some of that regular season's tape. Look at the numbers. Like, the guy might not be $30 million worth right now, but you give him a Washington team all to himself to do all this Jordan Poole stuff, and he's not on the team where a guy punched him in the face. I think I would be confident about that moving forward. Again, maybe not a $30 million player right now. Would it completely surprise you if he ends up on the All-Star team? Would it incredibly shock you to the point where you never thought that would happen? I think Jordan Poole spelled All-Star some point on the Warriors, so I don't see why he couldn't do it in Washington.
My guess is without the Warriors team that he's playing on right now, I think his trajectory is going to be a little bit more D'Angelo Russell-ish, where he's going to get numbers, but he's going to get this reputation of not the greatest team player, not the greatest winning player. That's why I so wanted him to be on the Warriors. It's okay, the development, he's going to have to sit behind Steph, but the development piece of this is he's going to be playing in this system and on this team, and the winning piece of it was going to be good for him. But now going to a bad team, I don't know. That's my worry is D'Angelo Russell. And look, D'Angelo Russell is a very good NBA
I think Jordan
player.
Poole projects as better. He's the
D'Angelo Russell is a point guard on the team that went to the Western Conference Finals. That was the best version of his career as far as sort of maturing in his career, right? Because everyone saw him coming out of college with the Lakers and then having all of those issues with his teammates, and then he moves on, and he comes to the Warriors, he goes to Minnesota. He's had stops already, and finally he was like, oh, I got to stop with the Lakers, and I'm a starting player on this playoff team going to the Western Conference Finals. Now he's also a free agent, so he'll be on a new team. But that's my worry for JP, is he will never really find a home like he had, or he should have had, in Golden State. So that's just
that's fair. I mean, the only reason D'Lo didn't stay in Brooklyn was, maybe there were more reasons. I wasn't as tuned in as I am now, but how could you have guessed that KD and Kyrie wanted to start a super team in Brooklyn? That's why he got moved, and he wasn't able to find more of a home in Brooklyn. But yeah, I think Jordan has a better chance of finding a home in Washington, simply because I think they're finally doing the rebuild. They traded KP, traded Beal. Kuzma's an unrestricted free agent. He will not be re-signing in Washington. I think Jordan Poole has a couple years to prove some stuff in Washington before they go try to win. And I don't know. I'm bullish. We'll see. What we should talk about, though, is the CP3 fit. I feel like we've talked about the trade, but we haven't talked about what we'll think CP will bring.
Well, let's do that on the back end. Let's just quickly go through the rest of this this first round here, and I'll let you get your comments in. So the Rockets and Pistons go back-to-back Thompson twins, and this is where the draft kind of got funky, is because their Cam Whitmore just took a dive. At 6, the Magic go Anthony Black. The Pacers draft Koulibaly to trade to the Wizards. So that is Jordan Poole's new teammate is Koulibaly. Mm-hmm. And the Wizards draft Walker, and they trade to the Pacers. And then the Jazz go Taylor Hendricks. We've talked about him on this podcast. Mavericks went Cason Wallace. We've talked about him. The Magic then draft Juwan Howard's baby boy. I didn't know that he was actually Juwan Howard's son, Jet Howard. And then the Thunder take a guy that we really liked, who just shot up the once you did that little thing on him, then he started jumping in the draft. Derek Lively the second,
Traded him Dallas,
and then they trade him to Dallas. And then Grady Dick goes to the Raptors. Jordan Hawkins, another guy we talked about, to the Pelicans. Kobe Buffkin to the Hawks. Keontae George to the Jazz. Jalen Hood Schifino to the Lakers, and then Jamie Jaquez Jr. to the Heat. And that's where the Warriors draft BP. So my question to you, because the Rockets draft Whitmore right after that pick, why do you think Whitmore just fell completely down the board?
I heard it's medicals.
You think?
That's the tweet I sent. Yeah, I was talking to MBA University, and he said medical. So I went and looked for a tweet that would have said that, and I did find one. Cam Whitmore medicals creating all sorts of worrying. This has come back to haunt teams more often than not. I didn't see an actual report on what was hurting him, but it's apparently medicals. I can't believe Houston ended up with him. That's I've seen this happen before, where you end up with 2 picks that should have been like 4. That's like Draft Day, the movie Draft Day.
I don't think I've seen that movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought it was I've only seen it once, when like 12 years ago, or whenever it came out, and I still remember them, how they were able to get like 3 top guys that they all wanted on their board. But yeah, like that's Cam Whitmore was projected to go 5, and the Rockets were able to get the 4th and 5th best player. Like Sam Vecini had Whitmore 3rd on his board. Wasn't on mine. That's one of those moments where I feel like I need to go with my gut more and be okay with ranking a player who's supposed to be like a consensus top 5, like way lower. Because my only problem with Whitmore is that I didn't see where the in-between game came from. Like, people had him as like this all-star expectations. And to me, I was like, he's a decent 3-point shooter with great athleticism at the rim, like potential 2-way, but I just didn't see where the mid-range shot creation came from. And because of that, like, I wanted to mock him lower, but I didn't. So it's definitely moving forward, something I'm going to think about. But man, Amen Thompson and Cam Whitmore, like, sure, I wasn't high on Cam, but I wasn't that low on 20. And sure, I was at least top 12 for him. Yeah. So I think the Rockets are definitely the winners here, because if you talk about like potential lineups are fun, but also, you know, there's no guarantee that Amen Thompson, Jalen Green, Cam Whitmore, Jabari Smith Jr., and Alfred Şengün are all going to turn into all-stars, but they look like it. Like, that would be fun. Like Jabari Smith Jr., maybe not, but the rest of them have a crazy upside. So, man, I might have to watch a lot more Houston. It's going to be ugly for a while, but it'll start looking good.
So out of the picks, what were some of your favorite picks for guys who fell to teams?
Jarris Walker to Indiana is probably my favorite fit out of all of them. I know I tweeted some of my favorites from the lottery. Jalen Hood-Schifino going to the Lakers is like a pretty darn good pick for them. Obviously, Scoot to Portland. Amen to Houston. It's just something I've been saying since I watched him at OTE, before he even started playing any games at OTE. I was just like, this kid's athleticism paired with Jalen Green just sounds really fun. And I think it's funny how, like, 8 months later it was available and it happened. Yeah, Jarris to Indiana, Lively to Dallas. Like, it makes all the sense in the world. I was high on Lively. I was surprised he was that low, being able to be drafted that low. He goes and hits 13 threes in a row at the Clutch Pro Day and shoots up like 8 spots on people's boards. So yeah, I think those 4 are my favorites. Obviously, Wembanyama to the San Antonio, but that's specifically in the lottery. Outside of the lottery, yeah, sure, the Lakers won. Dariq Whitehead to Brooklyn. Fan of that, because I was a big fan of Dariq going into the college season before he got injured. The Warriors, it's fun. I'm for the pick. Portland, I don't get it. I don't get the Clowney pick by Brooklyn either. Has Maxwell Lewis gotten taken yet? Are you watching any live updates?
So the last picks that happened were I think we left at 25. Indiana took Ben Shepherd at 26. Charlotte took Nick Smith Jr. at 27.
Oh my God.
And Bryce Sensabaugh,
yeah,
at 28 to Utah.
Wow, very interesting. I like that for Utah. I don't like that for Charlotte. It's like, I hate Charlotte. Nick Smith Jr. was a top projected pick coming out of high school, goes to the college season, gets hurt, doesn't really show as much. He just projects as like a Bones Highland Jordan Poole type.
PBJ?
No. Yeah, I guess a similar trajectory as PBJ, but
Yeah.
no, he just like projects as like a Bones Highland Jordan Poole, skinny guy, scoring punch, not that much playmaking, so more Bones Highland really. And I just like Charlotte just drafted that guy. Like they literally just drafted that guy 2 years ago, and it didn't work out in the Kuminga draft. James Bouknight, right? That's just James Bouknight that they just drafted right there. It's like, okay, yeah, if we didn't work with him, let's get the same player again. I hate Charlotte.
All right, we can talk about Chris Paul now. We got to hear Draftapalooza Part 2. I don't know if you were able to hear Simmons.
I just got one.
Simmons and KOC, and who was the third guy?
Russillo.
No, it wasn't Russillo. It was the guy who does college.
Oh, Tate.
It was Tate. So their thing, they really liked it for the most part, and it was because of Chris Paul's basketball intelligence and the fact that the Warriors, just as a team, got so much smarter. Now, my question: Chris Paul is off injured. Steph Curry is going to miss 15 to 20 games every single year. It just happens. Klay Thompson is, still, he played a lot last year. He didn't play back-to-backs until late in the season, but, he's still he's still back from that injury, and a lot of wear and tear and some worry about injury. Noah Iguodala. So you're gonna be relying on Gary Payton. You're gonna be relying on Moody. You're gonna be relying on Kuminga, unless this is one move in a combination of 2 or 3 moves that we don't know yet. We're just basing off what we know. I don't know. I think they need another guard. I think they need another ball handler, because there will be basketball games. I can guarantee you. I don't know if it's going to be 2. I don't know if it's going to be 10. Where Steph and CP are both out.
Yeah, that's the worry, right? With trading your all 82 guy for a guy who hasn't given you 55. And like, we should pull this up. I should have had this ready. I'm going to go to Chris Paul.
Oh, you're looking at his games played.
Chris Paul basketball reference. Okay, let's see. You have, just going to last year, 59 games played.
How many minutes per game, by the way?
32.
That's actually really good.
And he doesn't do the thing where, Steph does it, where you're coming back from a big injury and you slowly bring yourself back into the lineup, whether it's like sitting on the bench or however some players do it. So yeah, 59 games started. 65 games the year before, 32.9 minutes. 70, 58, 58, 61. So it may be not as bad as I thought, but I mean, when you start approaching age, what is he, 38 now? 37?
Yeah, 38.
38. It's just, it's not like when you're young and you expect like, okay, my availability will get better. I'll get better. It's like, no, he's on the decline.
Yeah, but that's part of the reason why they could get him, is because he's on the decline. You couldn't get 33-year-old Chris Paul for this Jordan Poole contract. It is, it is what, and because he's got the non-guarantee for the following year, that's also what makes this attractive. So yeah, player for player, I think I'd rather have Jordan Poole if we're talking about the next 3 years. But if we're talking about this season, who would you rather have? This 23-24 season, would you rather have Jordan Poole over Chris Paul?
Well, no, I've been telling you, man. I was on team Jordan Poole getting moved, which you don't talk about enough. I need my props here. Slater was trying to feed us the wrong information. I said I think Jordan Poole's more likely to get moved than Kuminga, and
I
felt like a hot take at the
Slater's
time.
Taking shots.
He deserves I love Slater, but yeah, that was made me almost second guess myself there, but I stayed to it. Jordan Poole on the Warriors versus Chris Paul should be the conversation, and it's Chris Paul. Jordan Poole on the Warriors was just not going to work out moving forward. Jordan Poole on the Wizards or Chris Paul, give me Jordan Poole. But Yeah, no, I'm actually relatively high on the pairing. I think that the Warrior, just another guy whose basketball IQ is through the roof. You talk about the Warriors backup point guards over the years, Sean Livingston, and then you go Ian Clark, like Quinn Cook, Kai Bowman, Brad Wanamaker, then Jordan Poole,
Don't forget about the great Nico Mannion, U of A.
Nico Mannion, and like Chris Paul. Like that's remember when Kyle Lowry didn't want to back up Steph, and now here's Chris Paul backing up Steph. No, I think the main question, if there was one question that someone was like, okay, over all this Warriors dynasty, like, what was something that you think they struggled with the most? And taking away the KD years, which I know was 2 titles and 3 finals appearances, but it's the non-Steph minutes. Is how do they do in the non-Steph minutes? And it's always been bad. But Poole, the hope with Poole, where they thought they struck gold with Jordan Poole, is that, oh wow, we might have struck gold here, and maybe we could start not only staying within, going wash on the Steph minutes, plus minus 0. Maybe we can even start winning some of these Steph minutes with this Jordan Poole kid. And it looked promising for a while, and then Draymond decides to punch him in the face and knock him out. But now I think getting Chris Paul, I think there is a potential that they can go wash on those non-Steph minutes or even win them again. And I think that, like you talk about starting 5, man. You look at the net rating on our starting 5. It's still one of the best in the league. Still one of the best in the league.
Okay, I have 2 questions for you on this fit. The first one: when Chris Paul and Steph play together, does that mean Draymond is not on the court? Because
No,
Draymond needs the basketball when he is on the court. Chris Paul needs the basketball when he is on the court. One of those 2 guys is going to be moving and cutting and sitting in a corner, and I just don't know. I don't know how to maximize both of those guys offensively at the
yeah.
same time.
I think it's more so that Steph won't be as on ball in those lineups. I think it'll be more like a split CP Draymond, where you do some of the pick and roll with that Steph and Dre do, where you do a high pick and roll. Dre gets the ball and he makes a decision whether he wants to shoot it, pass it, lob it, whatever. I think that, although that won't be a pick and roll that starts at the volleyball line like Steph's does because of how far he can shoot, but I think there could be some similar stuff with CP and Draymond, some similar 2-man game where both are pretty elite passers. And I think what's nice about this fit is, when's the last time we had a guy who like doesn't turn the ball over like that? Like Steph is just turnover prone. Draymond will make some dumb passes here and there. Like Chris Paul, like, I have his basketball reference up. Let's go look at the turnovers. What's his like assist to turnover ratio? I'm sure it's excellent. Turnovers, 1.9 turnovers this past season to 8.9 assists per game. This guy's the point guard. He's one of the best passers of all time. I'm willing. Chris Paul's biggest fan now after all that. I need Jonathan Kuminga and some State Farm commercials.
Jonathan Kuminga may be the benefactor of some of those passes.
Right? I think some of the young players are really going to benefit by having a Chris Paul. Like, okay, I know on Twitter I was upset about the trade, and I've had time to think about it since then. I haven't really tweeted my thoughts since I had time to think about it. I just kind of did some reaction tweets, which were very upset because I do think that we still got swindled. I think just at the moment of now, Jordan Poole got way undervalued simply because of his contract and how he played. And then, coupled with the fact that Washington was on an 80% fire sale for their entire team, and it seems like we got upcharged. But I think looking at the fit, like, it really does make sense. I think a lot of people are going to benefit. I think when you look at last year's Warriors, you can't really evaluate them correctly because of how many people missed time. Like Wiggins barely played. Steph barely played. They barely all played together. And when they did, it was excellent. So hypothetically, you add Chris Paul to that, and they're not going to be no 1 seed, shooting. I wouldn't bet on them being like a 1 seed or a 2 seed, but I think 3 and 4 is totally in play. And it's obviously going to be reliant on a lot of health factors, but they're taking the bet with Rick Celebrini and his staff that they could do what they did to Otto Porter Jr., what they did for Draymond. Like, I don't know really the X's and O's behind a medical training staff, but it seems like we have a good one. So, I think that if you're able to get 60 to 65 games out of both CP and Steph in the same season, you're able to strike gold just once in one season. I think it'll be very beneficial, and we'll see with the playoffs, because I feel like Chris Paul hasn't always had the best rep in the playoffs, but that's also because of the injuries. And and whatnot. So we'll have to see. As of now, I think really everyone benefits. I'm not really too worried about the spacing, because you have some of the best shooters in the world, and I think just when you have that many guys who know what to do with the basketball, like spacing is always going to be important. But I think, when you just have cones like GP2, no offense, but like he's kind of like a cone, whereas CP3 like knows what to do with the basketball. Draymond Green has limitations, but really he knows what he wants to do. So I think that the spacing is not going to be as big of an issue, say the second unit, when CP and Dre are in it.
Okay. How many times am I going to screw up CP2 and GP3 during our next season
You
of
already messed it
podcasts?
up. Yeah, no, I
That's going to happen
I
because
hope none.
I called Gary Payton's GP3 like a
I've
bunch of
never done
times
it,
this
and
season.
Chris Paul wasn't even on our team when you were doing it.
Maybe I was just foreseeing the future.
Yeah, but when you look at like the Warriors' needs, to me, I think there's still a need for, although you want to bet on the medical staff, how about you get some insurance with guys who could play 70 plus games? I think that's going to be really important. Availability is the best ability. It's one of the things I put in my lessons learned podcast, that after covering a season for the full year, like that is really undervalued, is how many games you could play in a season. That's why I think it's awesome with Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards that they're both pretty shoe-in for 82 games. Also, they still need that backup big. That's why I wanted Lively, a rim protector. I still think they need that, and I think they need someone who could pressure the rim. Wiggins coming back is going to be great. I think more Kuminga I think that could be something that they solve as well with the availability, is that Kuminga and Moody become staple pieces of the rotation. Would you bet on it? History tells us no, but I think
It's not up to us, right? It's really up to Steve Kerr.
Yeah. I just think that if you have Kuminga and Moody as staple pieces of the rotation, like you might be able to solve some of that availability stuff and some of the rim pressure stuff too. Both of those guys are pretty athletic, and Moody's a little sneaky athletic is the term. But I think that there's probably still another need for a couple more players. But yeah, I think they might have handled it.
Isn't BP sneaky athletic? So now we got two sneaky athletic
Yeah,
guys.
some sneaky athletic guys.
Oh man,
Obviously,
playing
like
at the same
another
time.
primary shot creator is important, but I think when you have someone who's that good at playmaking and getting his teammates involved, a CP, it almost kind of supplements that. Whereas if you put Clay in the second unit, like Clay might benefit the most out of all of this, just by like having CP set him up all the time and getting a lot of good looks for him. Like I'm really interested in seeing that pairing.
I guess you already answered the other question that I had about how Chris Paul fits in the offense, and he's not a motion guy, and the Warriors are a motion team, and he's more it's kind of
Dribble,
reminded
dribble.
you know what I just thought when I heard about the trade. I remembered that moment where it was early in the season of the 2017 when they had brought KD over, and it's like a late in the game, and KD's like clapping at Draymond, like, "Give me the ball." And then he missed like this like
The
fadeaway
Clippers, yeah,
three-pointer. I don't think it was that game. It was way it might have been like Milwaukee or something, because it was way earlier in the season. And so they needed, they had the ball for the last shot, and Draymond wanted to run a play, and KD's just like clapping at the top of the key, like, "Give me the ball," because he wanted to go ISO and he wanted to get the shot, and he missed. And that was an argument with them. And like, I don't think Chris Paul has the gravitas today to do that. Like that's not going to be his game.
no,
But just the idea that this is where he's comfortable playing is in this slower walk it up, like, I'm going to get to my spot and I'm going to shoot this 15-footer. Then you got a lot of guys on the Warriors kind of standing around. So that's going to be interesting how they kind of blend that in, because I could see Draymond going like, "Dude, pass the ball." Like we're all like just running for no reason. So I just want to know, don't let it be said that your brother doesn't give you props because he commented on a good point
thank
on
you.
Chris Paul's turnovers. All right, I think we can finish up here and lock this in as our draft podcast. Who we didn't know going into this podcast, we had no idea we were going to talk trade, so it was quite a surprise. I'm still a little sad. I'm going to throw the graphic back up because this is the end of the pool party. No more pool party for us here as Warriors fans. Hopefully, Jordan takes the pool party to the Wizards, and
Yeah,
we're going to hear about it because Bill Simmons is best friend is a Wizards fan, and he's on the podcast a lot.
they
And
needed.
we're gonna hear a lot about Jordan Poole next year.
How was Joe House not on Draft Palooza Part 2?
I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
I know last week he was actually in L.A. because of the golf.
Oh,
So
yeah. JD texted me today, very sad about the Jordan Poole thing. We talked
that's her
about it
guy,
when I went for
and the photographer Jordan.
Jordan Jimenez, J squared. Yeah, JD's very down and out right now. Hey man, we'll see. I mean, okay, just another.
By
Do
the
you
way,
think there's
you
another?
didn't buy a Poole jersey, right?
I did not. JJ did.
So you
JJ got the
kinda
AliExpress one though.
well, I was gonna say you kind of reversed the jinx there because every jersey that you had bought meant that the guy was not going to be on the team for very long.
Yeah, I might have reversed my curse there. I'm gonna go get my Matos jersey now.
There you
I
go.
think I broke the curse.
Yeah.
But okay, so we have 4 teenagers. Well, under the age of 21, there's 4 guys with a guaranteed roster spot right now.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, Patrick Baldwin Jr., BP.
MVP.
Do you think they go into the season with 4 guys under the age of 21? And if not, like, do you think they're? I mean, to me, like the glaring one is maybe just PBJ package. Obviously, that doesn't really get you anything. It'd be more like the picks, throw PBJ in there. I don't know. Is there another salary filler they have that they don't really have any bad contracts that you want to get rid of? So man, yeah, that does make it tough, but it's just hard to think that they're going to go into the season with 4. I knew they weren't going in with 5. Like I did know that, but 4 still seems like a lot, unless they're just really high on what BP can bring right now. They've been pretty wrong about that in every single time they've done it, but maybe once they can get it right. The first year rookie contributing like that, Jordan Bell was okay his rookie year, but he had the simplest job ever, and he wasn't helpful in the playoffs. Damian Jones, Jacob Evans was a complete bust. Eric Paschall had a good rookie year, but when you actually made him play basketball, like he wasn't good. And Jordan Poole was awful his first year. They haven't really had success with a first year guy contributing in their first year.
Yep. That's like thinking that BP will just walk in and be like, oh, this guy.
History tells us no for the Warriors.
History tells us that Steve Kerr's not going to play him enough. That's what history really tells us, and that's not a diss at Steve Kerr. That's just kind of what it's been like, right? So,
yeah. I mean, okay, so if you think about this, like the things that Steve Kerr doesn't like in young players is what bad shots, turnovers, effort. Would you put anything else in there that like deters guys from playing?
Defense.
Because just off of those 4 things alone, I feel like BP can give the correct effort, maybe not take bad shots, and I forgot what the other one I said was, but the defense will be the issue. Like I think he might be. There's a chance that just like a smart basketball player like him might find a chance in the Warriors rotation.
Can I remind you of this haircut?
Maybe okay. Never mind.
There may be some things personality wise in that haircut that I don't know. Is Steve gonna vibe with the guy who gets his haircut like that?
Yeah, no.
Actually, it's actually kind of a funny haircut. I wonder if that's what his hair looks like right now, because I think that was like the ESPN. Like imagine you're the ESPN is there and like, hey, we're gonna take your photo. This is gonna be on your ESPN page, and he's like, all right, I'm ready. Here's my haircut.
See what Jimmy Butler did? But Jimmy Butler's was a joke. This guy's serious.
Well, what did they do to Jimmy Butler on ESPN? They put in his 2K cartoon photo. All right. I think we're done here. We'll be back next week. And then the following week, this is a good opportunity to check in on our social media, because we're going to be at the California Classic in Sacramento. So we'll have photos and videos of what's going on there. If Wembanyama shows up, maybe he plays, maybe he doesn't. Hopefully he's there. We'll get a couple photos of him. Also, Brandon Miller will be there. And then this, I guess the Kings what did the Kings do in the draft? Whatever they did will be there, and then we'll get to see BP. And I hope that the hair is a little different, but I want to see him play because there's nothing like seeing somebody play live to really get a gauge on just the way that they carry themselves and stuff. So it'll be fun seeing him live. So yeah, so follow at BSPN Media on Twitter, at BSPN_media on Instagram. I have no idea who took the account without the underscore. I got to find that one out. How else would
Maybe you
have
announced it and someone just immediately went to take it, tried to charge you.
And then bspnmedia.com is the website where you can find all of our podcasts. So we will be back next week. For Bry, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.